Live now, Al Walid. Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Liam Kennedy is joining us. I think he's just getting in from a WhatsApp meeting or some kind of broadcast elsewhere. We have got a special guest tonight. We've got Al Walid on from Saudi Arabia. Good evening. How are you, mate?
Good evening. How are the lads?
Yeah, how are the lads? And we've got Liam Kennedy. There he is. Better late than never.
Great.
I think I was late. You were on time, Liam. Good evening, mate. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you doing, guys?
Great. How are you, Liam? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, good stuff. As always, we're going to have plenty to talk about. I think, Al Walid, I'd just like to come to you first just about the atmosphere at the moment in Saudi Arabia. How's it? How have you taken the news, that there's been a halt in proceedings?
Actually, I need to mention this first.
Go on.
When we heard the withdrawing shocking news, I wrote a tweet back then, which was, I was saying, does this mean Saudi Arabia could invest Newcastle with different buyers? Is it a movement to pressure the Premier League to make a decision? PIF paid 17 million to Mike Ashley and it was non-refundable. We are waiting the reaction of the Premier League. That was my expectation back then. I understand the fans were very angry from the news. Even me and the fans in Saudi Arabia were very angry because the first thing we wanted or expecting to hear after this long was the approval of the takeover. That was how we felt. I want to talk about PIF reason of this action. In my perspective, PIF been waiting and going along with all this stalling by Premier League in all matters. And what they get in return? More silence, more stalling, leaking of unreasonable document to the opponent media, which play with the fan feelings with a stupid news just for clickbait. It's been 17 weeks, Steve. It's more than enough. Even exclusively deal of the takeover was over. Transfer window been over since a week. Nobody can blame PIF for this action. We found out also with during this withdrawing, some of top clubs, we all know who are they, were against the deal. I think VR doesn't need another competitor for Europe and Champions League seat. Actually, this is of Premier League, if letting this top clubs interfere with this, with big decision like that. Actually, sorry to say that, but Premier League making themselves this big of letting outsider interfere in such a thing. This is, I think, this is explain of PIF action. But for my side, I think I find it something positive. All what happened, it's positive. Why? First of thing, they end our frustration. They move the stagnant water. They unite the great fan base into one direction. We saw now the petition reach 74,000 by now. We all see Tyler. I like to call him Tyler Hood. Actually, we saw him in going camping in front of Premier League headquarters. I think also today he went to the parliament.
Yeah.
For yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, so I think it's positive. Yeah.
But listen, I mean, it's great to have you on and have that Saudi perspective. Obviously, Liam Kennedy, you work for the Shields Gazette, and our shows each week now have we've been building up nicely to what we thought would be an end game of a takeover and Newcastle looking ahead to the new season with a bit of optimism. Instead, what we had last week was what we feared but didn't expect, which was the takeover coming to an abrupt halt. And I'll say halt as opposed to an end, because what's happened subsequently in the last few days is there's been a few statements raised and made by Amanda Stabley and PCP and Mirdad, also from the Rubin brothers yesterday. It doesn't look like it's over.
No, I think there are positives to take from that. Obviously, we've seen the buyer and seller both come out and say that they're 100% committed to this deal, and as Newcastle fans, we haven't got a lot to cling on to now. So if we can cling on to anything, it's got to be that the words they're saying are true, and they do want to do this deal. It's amazing, really, that you have a buyer and a seller who want to sell the club. They want to exchange goods, but they're not being allowed to by a regulatory body. It's incredible, really, the situation we find ourselves in. I say they're not being allowed to. They just weren't being told whether they could or not. That's the worst thing about this endless delays and frustrations. I'm at loss to see why they would walk away, but I could see if this was a tactic, why they might. If it's not a tactic, then I fear for the bid. We know there has to be some kind of movement, whether it be the Premier League or whether it be PIF. There has to be some kind of movement for this deal to go ahead. I'm not sure exactly the detail of that movement, what it would have to be, but there would definitely have to be, somebody would have to give something. And I think that's where it's really important. You mentioned it there, Al-Walid. You talked about the uniting of the fan base. And it really has been. And I think that's the most important thing about this, is that we're united by name and we've got to be united by nature. We've got to stick together, because there's been too many factions over the years. Everyone's really got to get pushing in the right direction. And we might feel like as individuals we can't do a lot for this process, but if everybody sticks together, there's a lot of out there, a lot of people who can say things, can have influence, and if we can all stick together, you never know, it might just colour the narrative a little bit. We might be able to force a little bit of pressure, and I think it's really important. It's been really heartening, like you said, that people have pulled together, and hopefully it continues to be that way, because obviously nobody got the decision that we all wanted, but in the end we might. It might not be in its current form. It might not even be these current investors. But I've stuck by this since I've come on here. Steve, you vouch for that. That I genuinely believe we're in the Mike Ashley endgame. And I think his own words via Lee Charnley prove that.
Yeah, James Brown is asking if we think the petition will achieve what the fans hope it will. Liam, I will come to you on that. I mean, there is two petitions up there. One, of course, is on a site called change.org. Seen a few people criticizing it because it asks for donations. People are donating to it. It's not particularly going to the cause. There's no cause. Yeah. It has got, as Al-Walid's already mentioned, over 70,000 signatures now, which is great. There is a parliamentary petition, which I believe has been set up already, and I think that's gaining momentum. So do petitions do any good? Are they going to work? Are they going to help?
Of course they can. They show the power of... There is a movement at the moment. There is a push in a direction that people really want some kind of transparency from the Premier League. I think that's the reason why everybody feels so helpless, is that this decision, well, the decision hasn't been taken, but it almost feels like it has behind everybody's backs, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with protecting confidential information and that kind of thing, but treat us all like adults. Tell us why you've come to this point and why you couldn't pass it if that's the case, or just pass it if you can. You've got to come to a decision. You can't just... The worst possible thing anybody can do in any situation is just not make a decision at all. They've got to make a decision whether it's a yes or no. And I think petitions can help push that from a number of different angles. And I'm with you on that one. I think it took you no time at all to sign the change one. I don't see why anybody can't go out there and sign the parliamentary one as well. I've signed the change one, and I'll sign the parliamentary one as well. I wasn't even sure that somebody had set it up, but I'm all for that. And I would back anybody out there, go and do the same, because it can't be detrimental to the cause. It can only help, and it might not make much of a difference, but at least it feels like you're doing something. And I think taking control in any situation can only be a good thing.
Please give the video a like and a share. Stick the thumbs up and click it just so we can help grow the channel, guys, please. Al-Walid, you've seen the petition. You mentioned it. Were you surprised how quickly that's grown?
Actually, yeah, the number is actually very huge, and we're expecting more. And at the end of the show, also I have message, if you allow me later, for Saudi Arabia in Arabic to
No problem.
thanks, to make them understand this is important for Newcastle, why it's important for PIF. Actually, this number show how much really need an answer. We need an answer, and show how people are really frustrated from waiting this long.
Al-Willie, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yeah, it was just, we hear a lot about, from the Newcastle perspective, about how important it would have been for Newcastle United fans, for the club, for the city. But as a country, how important would it have been for Saudi Arabia to get the go-ahead? Because I know, obviously, MBS is very popular with the young population, and I'm led to believe that he kind of wanted to show his young population that he understands them, and Premier League football is one way to do that, because it's loved in the country. Is that kind of the narrative from Saudi Arabia? Is that something that that you think was the reason why they wanted to do this?
Can you just the beginning? It wasn't clear. Can you make the question?
So yeah, just how important do you think it is for Saudi Arabia, this bid? How important? How much would it mean to the people of Saudi Arabia if this went through?
See, actually, as I mentioned before, last episode with Steve, Saudi Arabia, they are a huge fan of Premier League. We are really, we are like you, very interesting in Premier League. We support the teams like it's actually we are from there, from the city of these clubs. As I make a confession last time, no need to say it again. We support Premier League teams very much. We have communities, we have association internally among our society. We really care about this Premier League, Champions League. So we hope the idea of having a club in the Premier League, at first place, it was very interesting to the sport fan. Regardless the investment, the economic things, the plans, they will start to development the sport worldwide.
Yeah, good stuff. You got the answer you wanted there, Liam. I think it's a very important deal to Saudi Arabia, just as it is to Newcastle United fans, and still hope that it's going to go through. We've got plenty of questions coming in. Sean Foreman, evening guys. As we're all aware, Matty Longstaff's contract ran out on Saturday. Do you think there's any possibility he could sign a new contract at the club, or he will move on to a new club? Liam, I'll put that to you. Any updates on Matty?
It's still a very tender situation. I wish I could give more detail than that, but I'm led to believe that there still hasn't been a decision taken from the player on what his next move might be. Fingers crossed. I hope it's Newcastle United, because I think it'd be an amazing talent to lose. He's a young lad with his whole career ahead of him. He bleeds black and white. He loves the club. It'd be a real shame to see him pull on a shirt of another club, and we've seen that all too many times before with other players. So fingers crossed it doesn't come to that. But I think there was a lot of a wait on for the takeover to see whether it went ahead or didn't. Obviously, there's been no clarification on that as things stand. So he's going to have to make a decision really on whether he wants to be part of Mike Ashley's Newcastle United, not the Newcastle United we all dream of.
Next question again for you, Liam. Emmett Griffin. And evening, guys. Do you think St. Maximin will be a Newcastle player by the end of the transfer window, or will the takeover have an influence on stayings or goings? So, and he also says, hashtag the Premier League or hide and seek champions. Yes, Tyler found that out at the Premier League. Emmett Griffin's question then. ASM, is he going to stay or is he going to go?
Obviously, I don't want to be held to this, just in case he does. Just because we've all known what's happened before previous transfer windows, but I would suspect he probably will be part of the Newcastle squad next season.
Yeah, I would agree as well. So I'll put my neck on the line. I agree. Geordie says, hello, do you think that if the Saudi takeover does not go through, Amanda Staveley and the Rubin family would be interested in working with a group, for example, Newcastle United Supporters Trust, and having shares in the club? Well, actually, I've just come off a Zoom call with the Newcastle United Supporters Trust and other supporters groups. There's been a big call for unity on social media. Most people will have seen that. And obviously I was invited into the Zoom chat. I'll let the trust, of course, come out with the results of that meeting. I think it was quite positive. I decided not to comment at the meeting because enough people have heard enough from me over the years. It's nice to hear other voices. And yeah, I think it was interesting to hear people. It was a typical, meeting of different supporters groups. Everyone has different opinions. But I'm sure there will be minutes available from that in due course, possibly as early as tonight. I think the call for unity is right. I think supporters should be standing side by side. I still feel that there's a few things which can be addressed differently, but let's see what happens. It's early days. Petition is growing, and I think there's a lot of things which were said in that group which can be done quite quickly. So let's see what happens. It's good to see the supporters groups working together. Of course, I'm not a supporters group really. I'm somebody who has been in many of these groups over the years. Magpie Group. I've been on the board of the NUFC. I've obviously worked for the club, so I've had a foot in a lot of these different camps. I am supporting it. I will push it, and I will help. The cause as best I can. But yeah, we'll see how it all progresses. I think we really need to work out where we need to be directing our anger to. That's what I would say, and where we need to be directing our frustrations to. And I think that's a key. And I do feel Mike Ashley holds the key to this deal, and that has been reported on social media amongst people. I think Mike Ashley is the key. I think he needs to push this through with the Premier League. He is the seller. As we know, the potential buyers have walked away. I do feel that Mike Ashley might actually ironically be the friend that we need in this relationship to get this through. But let's see how it all progresses. Goth Mugs Pajamas, any idea why Michael Chopra tweeted what he did? Surely he wouldn't do it for kicks. He knows the state we are in. Yeah, Michael, he will have to explain that himself when he comes on the show. Michael has had contact with other people in the past, whether it's a new deal on the table, whether he had some advice off anybody, who knows? I'm sure Michael will be back on the show to explain that. Dan says, evening lads, do you think the Petition and Stevie and Reuben brothers' comments will make a difference? What do you make of Simon Jordan's comments and him mentioning you, Steve? It was nice to hear Simon Jordan mention me. That's, yeah, and I did listen to the show live. Didn't expect him to say anything like that, but he was quite complimentary of Newcastle fans, quite disparaging about the Premier League. And essentially, I just think in the 10-minute segment or whatever it was, I think he pretty much got it spot on. So, he was more or less saying that it's a prevention of trade, which is the angle that, Mike Ashley and PCP, who are facilitating the deal, should go down. And that really, and I saw a tweet from a supporter whose name I can't remember today, he did quite an in-depth tweet saying pretty much the same thing. And Al-Walid, you probably understand this, but it's a prevention of trade. So what these people were essentially trying to say was there is nothing stopping Mike Ashley selling his shares of Newcastle United to PIF, PCP and the Reubens. That deal could go through. Then what you would need to happen is PIF and PCP and the Reuben brothers would then contact the Premier League and say, the deal's done. We're happy to work with you and work out, the strategy and how we move forward. And that could be interesting if that goes, but that would require guts, and it would require what we call in England balls. You would have to get the buyer to do that. Now, the one thing we do know the PIF have is a lot of money. And one thing I think we know from, looking at reports about your leader, MBS, the Prince, he's a very strong man and a very determined man. So maybe that message could get across to PIF, and the deal could be completed. The Premier League, I don't think, would be able to stop it. So then, the Premier League would have to work with PIF and the club, as it would be then, to work out any differences. So it could be interesting times. That might well happen, I will lead.
I think the message being delivered yesterday with Reuben Brothers, the statement from the Sky Sport.
Yes,
I think I believe this message represent PCP, also PIF, Premier League must to make a step forward for PIF, so the deal can be revived. Now, no. The real question is when the Premier League will make a comment, at least.
Been waiting a long time for that, Al-Walid. Been asking them week after week, day after day. It's just a wall of silence. I've been calling it the cloak of confidentiality. I genuinely think they're just hiding behind this, and it's starting to really wear thin. You don't hide behind. I'm not going to make aspersions here, but the only type of people who hide behind things like this is people who've got something to hide, and I think that's what it's grown. This silence and confidentiality has grown that feeling among the Newcastle United fan base that if you've got nothing to hide, then just tell me what decision you've come to or what point you got to. I don't
exactly.
think.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. They can't.
Yeah, go on, Al-Walid. No, go on.
They can't hide forever. They can't hide forever. They must say something.
So anyway, we need them to say something. We need some clarity, definitely. And I just want to go back to a point you mentioned before, Stephen. You said about the Mike Ashley holding all the cards, really, in a legal sense. We've got to remember.
Oh, Liam, we lost you there. You've lost you in mid-flow, so we might have to come back to him. He's probably got a phone call. This is what happens, I think, when you use your mobile phone. Sometimes it takes a phone call and it can knock you out in mid-flow. So we will get Liam back. Bear with us. We'll bring him back when he gets his issues sorted. Terry Atkinson asks a question: have we heard anything at all from PIF that they are willing to re-engage? Are they waiting for positive soundings from the Premier League? I know Liam will have an answer to the fact that the press in this country have had discussions with PIF representatives. I think once PIF announced that they were going to withdraw from the deal, I think there was somebody who does the public relations, the PR for PIF, actually had an online Zoom conference with journalists and explained their position. Has there been anything like that in Saudi Arabia?
Not I'm aware of, actually.
Okay. There has been in England, though, and when we get Liam back on, I'm sure he will be able to tell us a little bit about that. 40 says Premier are not talking because they know they've messed up, which is fair enough. Les has said, if the Saudis are going to come back to the table, what or will they do differently because the Premier League won't budge? I don't think it's a case of doing anything differently, is it? I think there's been unnecessary pressure from different quarters, Al-Walid, shall we say. There's been different pressure being put on this, and that's what's caused the hold-up. I don't believe PIF have done anything wrong.
Actually, the Premier League now, they are cornered. They have to say something. They have to do something. They have to make anything. That's why we are doing the petition. And hopefully the other petition of the parliament, I think, will start, as I understand, been agreed on. Now, they are partners. Robin and PCB, PIF, they are partners. So I think, what we got yesterday from Robin, brother, I think it's encouraging and positive thing to hear. Especially the plans I heard about how they will gonna develop the city in economics and the sport. The plan they have for the club. Welcome, Lee.
He's back, yeah. Terry, did you get a phone call, Liam?
No, I didn't. I think the wind seems to have got up here. I think it must be the internet. I don't know what's going on at the minute. It keeps dropping in and out, so I'm not popping out for the chops or anything when I'm keep popping in, but
it's all right. It's all right. I thought it was people trying to these people who are working for these bizarre other countries that don't want to see this deal go through. I thought they were attacking your system.
Terry Atkinson off the camera there. That's why they cut it off.
Terry Atkinson's question, I answered it for you because I put that up for you. And PIF did have a Zoom call, didn't they, with everybody? I think with selected journalists once it was announced that PIF were pulling out. Can you just clarify that?
Yes, there was a PIF briefing which was done on the night or the day after the news came out, just shaping what their feelings were on the decision. But it was very much, as has been reported, there wasn't anything controversial from that. They genuinely pulled out because this wasn't a stunt, which people may see as this was something that they just couldn't see a way forward, and they're really frustrated with. So yeah, that they outlined plans, etc., as to what might have happened or may well still happen if we're still keeping that light on. But yes, there was a meeting, there was a briefing. So all angles have been covered here, really. Everybody's spoken on and off the record with regards to this. And as we know, there is a want to do this deal. But as I said before, I think either PIF or the Premier League are going to have to do a fair bit of moving here. But I think it's within our power, within Mike Ashley's power, as I was getting on it before, to really push the Premier League into making a decision, even if it's not the decision we all want. I think everybody's at least owed a decision on this.
Al-Walid, was it a surprise to see Liverpool and Tottenham as the two teams or two named teams who objected to this takeover? Was it a surprise?
For me, no. Because Liverpool, they doesn't want to wait another 30 years to make the league, and Tottenham, I think they have no silverware in the club, I think. So and they doesn't want to fight on the Premier League, in Champions League and Europe League seat, also. But as I said, this is very interfering. It's very interfering with the Premier League, and this shouldn't happen at all, unprofessional.
Yeah, of course it shouldn't. The Premier League should be there to serve all 20 of its stakeholders, not just a select 6 or 7 who it may pick and choose who to serve. It should serve every single one of them clubs. It shouldn't be top versus bottom. It shouldn't be top 6 versus the rest. It should be everybody on a level playing field, and I think that's what everybody wants to see from them.
Yeah, I would agree.
I saw the video of Tyler. He was feeding the office in Premier League. There is a photo of Liverpool and Tottenham players on the wall. He commented, yeah, did you see it?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, he said, why no, there is no Newcastle players up there in the wall. And it's so it's look like confirming what we hearing, what we heard.
More conspiracies. What I like.
Lots of them. Doug Hall says Barclays are the common denominator with the Qatar bailout, Staveley's court battle, Premier League main sponsor, and Bank. Also, Gary Hoffman is a former Barclays chairman. He's now the chairman of the Premier League. Why isn't this front page news? Doug's made a great point there, Liam.
There is that connection, obviously, but connecting those dots in a legal sense can be very, very troublesome. It's not something, I'll be honest, it's not something I've tried to do. There's been a lot of things sent my way from, honestly, there's Inspector Clouseaus all over the place out there in the Newcastle United fan base. They're absolutely brilliant. I've been sent so many leads in the last 7 days. It's been unbelievable. Chasing every single one of them in every single angle and make sure it's legally watertight before you put that pen to paper is really difficult in a lot of senses. It could take a long time to get this sorted, but maybe that will come out. And I think, as we say, we can only keep putting pressure on, and hopefully we'll get some kind of pressure and decision from the Premier League, whether that's to do with corruption, collusion, anything. Hopefully we'll get some kind of answers, especially, but we do need a governmental independent review of the decision-making process, because they're a massive organisation, the Premier League. It's one of the biggest exports this country has around the world. And for there to be no scrutiny of a decision that could have a big impact, not just on one of the cities in this country, but also on the product that's sent around the world is incredible. There should be a little bit more transparency.
Ethan asks a question for you, Al-Walid. It would be lovely to see Saudi Arabian supporters join the Newcastle community at St James's Park. He says, how many Saudis do you think would visit the club if the takeover happens?
I believe it's going to be in thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll need a bigger ground.
I'm looking forward to seeing the yachts on the Tyne. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, I believe there's 1,000 of them. Because, as I said, we are a fan of the Premier League. And overall, if Imagine if we really have a club there. We all be supportive. We have 30 million, I think, care about this.
Yeah. Lots of people going on about the protests that have been mentioned. Got to be honest, we're in the middle of a pandemic worldwide. A mass march might be something you can do once, social distancing is lifted. But we've seen the results already of various marches and, big volumes of people getting together. And, until there's some kind of answer to what's going on within the country and the world, I wouldn't think you'll get many people wanting to endorse marches on the Premier League. So that would be my answer to that. Also, Rafa Benitez, he says, how many people do you think will sign the petition? It'll be an incredible message if it goes under 100,000. I think it will, and I'm pretty sure the guys do too. And I did see a point there. Yeah, Emmett Griffin, he says it was great to see some former players get behind the petition. Rob Lee, Robbie Elliott, to name a couple. Yeah, it is importantly, I suppose, to fans to see that ex-players are, backing this campaign.
Yeah, it's difficult for some because they've got their contracts. They get work still from parties who have got interests in this. So it's a difficult one for them. They might still, even some of them, do talk-ins with the club and pre-match stuff and things like that. So nobody's going to burn their own bridges. But it was really heartening, I thought, this week to see a couple of the old lads come out and really sort of put some backing behind it, because that gives it weight. We need everybody who's got any association with Newcastle United, if it's within their power, to really pull in the same direction. And hopefully they're only the first of a few players, because we want to see lots of that. We want to see this as a real movement. And we're talking about the website that it's on is change.org. That is a website that wants to invoke change in things. And that's what we want. We want our football club to change. We want our city to change. And we feel like there's somebody blocking that.
Yeah. The question coming in thick and fast. Rich Story says, what's your thoughts on the Premier League representatives selecting members for committee to choose a new chief executive only for the candidate to then have an informal meeting with Man United and Liverpool? I mean, corrupt's a word that's getting thrown around quite a lot online. I'm not using the word corrupt, I've got to be honest, because it's, you've got to be very certain of your facts. However, let's just say the evidence is building, isn't it?
Well, I think this comes from a New York Times article, if I'm right in saying, where it was actually written by one or two names who've been actually quite critical of this whole process with regards to Newcastle United takeover. But I think you have got to be careful. But if that information is correct, that's quite amazing that the Premier League could choose a chief executive, for example, and then the final okay comes from probably the most two powerful clubs in there. That shouldn't happen. This should, like I said before, there are 20 stakeholders in the Premier League, and I don't care whether you're Bournemouth, Aston Villa, I don't care whether you're Man United, Arsenal, whatever. Everybody should be the same. Newcastle United's decision making should be exactly the same as whoever else may well be in there. As a Manchester United, as a Manchester City, there shouldn't be any difference. It should all carry the same weight. And I find if that to be true, I don't know if it is true. I'm not going to say it is. But if that's the case, where the final nod comes down to two clubs who can effectively veto any decision taken at Premier League level, is unbelievably corrupt, should that be the case. But they're a private organisation. I suppose in some ways you could say they can do what they want. But it's not. It's never been painted like that. It's never been painted as the top against the bottom. And that's what that kind of story suggests, that the teams at the top are dictating everybody else that, okay, you can play football with us, but it's our ball. We'll decide when we go home, you know what I mean? And it's not right. That's not the way you play. That's not a fair game.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. Ryan Fraser, I can't remember who asked the question, came up there before. Any updates on Ryan Fraser, or any updates on any incomings you can share with us?
No, I'm unfortunately not. It's going to be a tight summer. I know the kind of players that are looking at. I've seen some players on certain lists. I think Ryan Fraser was very high on that list. He's a player that was interested in Rafa Benitez back in January 2019, and he's somebody who's never really gone off the scouting network's radar. They've been looking at him all the way through. I think it was actually expected, if Benitez had stayed on, I think they would have made a permanent move last summer. But I think a lot of the change, a lot of the state of flux that the club found itself in with the change at the top, meant that move never materialised, even though the player kind of expected something was come. I'm not sure whether he would have done it, because I think he was quite set in his ways on staying at Bournemouth for the final year of his contract, so he get this move that he sees as his almost his chance to have a big move. But I think there's some suggestions that Arsenal and Tottenham had been in his ear a little bit towards the end of his contract at Bournemouth. And Newcastle, I believe, did offer him a pre-contract agreement, which you can do a month before the end of the season. But he didn't accept that. But I think, like I say, I think that was more the fact that he thought his top 6 move might have been on. Now that hasn't materialised. So we're now talking in the realms of Newcastle fighting out with Crystal Palace, West Ham, a couple of others. So I think it's going to be a tight fight. I mean, my concern, just as this isn't from information, but say you go in a straight up fight of Mike Ashley's Newcastle against West Ham for Ryan Fraser, West Ham will blow Newcastle out of the water for wages. They just will. It shouldn't happen, and it wouldn't happen normally, but it will happen in this current situation. So that would be my fear. And then if the player, I know he's from Scotland, he's from Aberdeen, but if you don't know, he might quite like it down south, and that will be when a Crystal Palace may well come into play. It's not a bigger club, of course, and a big move, but it's a decent move from Bournemouth, to be honest. There's a fair difference in size between those clubs, so they would be the only caveats I would say to this, that he had his head turned and he wasn't sure about Newcastle move, even though he knew the interest. And now, what does he fancy? Does he fancy going to a London club, or does he fancy the money, or does he fancy a crack at Newcastle United? And that's up to the player, really. But he is a player that Steve Bruce likes, and he is a player that's definitely been on the radar for quite some time.
Great stuff. Gary Stranick says, could the Reuben brothers buy 100% of the club, then PIF come in at a later date? My understanding is that isn't something that they would want to do. They want the deal to be the way that they've proposed it, so we'll wait and see. Fungo Freddy makes a valid point. We don't really want to get drawn into this whole situation about Black Lives Matter, but essentially, yes, marches, like I said before, people gathering at the beach at Brighton, Bournemouth, all of these things are, to be honest, they're completely irresponsible when there's a pandemic, and you can put a mask on, etc. But when there's thousands of people all grouped together, we're still not certain about this, this pandemic and this COVID and how it spreads. And unfortunately, we're not going to learn, whether these have been huge mistakes until maybe it's a little bit later in the year, when we're led to believe that the weather will change and things were going to get worse. So, I agree and I disagree. I'm all for having a march and stuff, but at the moment, you're not supposed to be doing things like that. Jonathan Ward says, Steve, are you surprised Richard Keys hasn't come out and made a comment since last Thursday? Surely he would be the first to gloat, or at least come out and say anything. My idea on that, Liam, is he's on holiday with Richard Masters. Maybe Richards go away on holiday at the same time.
Put that commentary towels out around the pool.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be ironic if they were in Saudi Arabia for a holiday?
Actually, I'm wondering, Mike Ashley Premier League didn't speak to Mike Ashley, tell him what the reason of this holding?
Not our understanding. I know Liam's made some inquiries, but what happens with Mike Ashley, Al-Walid, is quite simple, and Liam will back me up. We ask questions, we don't get any answers. Liam, is that right?
Yeah, it's real close. He has been since the day that he came to the football club. So yeah, it's a difficult one. I do believe that he was informed that things were going in the right direction quite early on in the process, but then was very much in the dark, as everyone else found themselves, to be honest. And I think for him, that's been as equally as frustrating as anybody. And like you said earlier, Steve, it's amazing to think after 13 years of Mike Ashley at Newcastle United that he would be on the path of least resistance. We really thought he would be the one putting spanners in the works left, right and centre, but that hasn't been the case. As much as everyone, even when this broke down, wanted to blame him, he moved the goalposts or whatever, that wasn't really, he did, but it wasn't really a spanner in the works for anybody. But only time will tell. Hopefully, he is an angry man at the moment. He wanted this deal to go through, and fingers crossed he's angry enough to just spend that little bit more on his legal teams and getting them really ramping up the pressure behind the scenes.
Fingers crossed. Do you think, guys, we'll hear a decision this week? I think the answer is no to that. I don't expect anything else this week at all. Colin Wilson, Woodant and Deck have contract obligations. A lot of this comes down to politics, and I don't think they'll be allowed to comment. Jason just agrees with us. Marches right now aren't a good idea. Barry's asking a football-related question. He says, who do you want to win the playoff final tonight, Liam?
I was hoping for a little more of a redressing of the balance for Northern side to be up, but no, it's not going to happen, is it? So Fulham's probably a better away trip, but I would say quite like Fulham when you come there.
Al-Walid is an adopted Geordie, says Emmett. You're definitely making a big impression on Newcastle fans, Al-Walid.
Yeah, thanks for this.
Yeah, Mark Sargent says, would you take Wilson and sacrifice Gale in the process, Liam?
Yes. I really like Callum Wilson, but I would suggest he's gonna go to Tottenham, I would say.
Do you mean Wilson from Bournemouth?
Yes. What about you, Al-Walid? Would you take him?
Me, of course I take him, but for me, I like Gael more.
Okay, that's all about opinions.
Yeah.
The only thing that would put me off Wilson is his injury record. But then Gale's hasn't been too clever either. But it's an interesting one. It depends whether Gale really wants to be at the club. Dave Elder says Newcastle City Council are the latest to send a letter to Richard Masters asking for clarity. Keep the pressure on, lads. Keep the faith. Rafa Benitez as God says, where's Wally? I mean Maurice. Eddie Garnett says Henry Maurice. What is he? I mean, have you heard about this new mysterious bidder? Al-Walid, Henry Morris has news of him.
Yeah, since the beginning we hear the name. I try to look forward. Nobody know anything about him. Just some journalists. I don't know. They just I don't know. Even they are saying not unreasonable comment. Usually now with every move from BCB or the Saudi led, we hear about it. But Henry Morris just news in the paper. No, nothing in the media about him. I think he's just imaginary character. Yeah, I don't think he's exist.
Yeah,
nobody. There is. I think there is no one name is Henry Morris.
No, definitely not. Definitely, he's sitting around the pool in Saudi Arabia in 50 degrees with the two Richards. I think. David Spillett says the Sun newspaper. It's not a paper many of us read at all. To be fair, David Spillett says Sun reporting the PIF are moving on AC Milan. Is this true? Now, we've seen a few stories in the English newspapers, Al-Walid, about other options for PIF. So Milan is the latest. The other one was Olympique Marseille in France. That was another one that was mentioned. Are you seeing anything reported about these potential bids?
Actually, I just read some news, like not from big news or trusted media. And this come just only after the withdrawal news. So but as we said, now the PIF make no choice for Premier League. I think the message is clear. Premier League, no more excuse. Make a decision. If they make a decision now this is what you expect. A decision. If the decision is no, I think of course, what they make to pay PIF no choice to go to another league, unfortunately.
How hard to say, really, if you did see PIF go elsewhere and really splash the cash, but it would be pretty sore, and Newcastle United fans have waited so long for a little bit of hope. But I will say about the Marseille one, I'm led to believe that that's not a PIF investment. It's a private investment, more along the lines of the Sheffield United type thing. And I'm not sure about AC Milan, to be honest, but it is a name that I've seen come up recently. And that could well be the same. That could be a very similar sort of private investment from possibly a minor Royal in some ways. But I think only time will tell on that. But I think we all know they wanted Newcastle United. They'd been convinced by the PCP and Amanda Stavely and other brokers that this was the club for them. And I think they'll be as disappointed as anybody. I know they're the ones who pulled out, but they'll be disappointed. They'll feel like they've lost in some ways if this is the end. They'll feel like they've been betrayed by reputable governing bodies who've been influenced potentially by outside influences, and I think there will be a lot of disappointment. It would be interesting to know whether it would their fingers would be burnt as well, whether they'd think again about potentially investing in a football club, because this has sort of dragged their name through the mud in some senses. In others, it's had their name right at the front and centre of newspapers, and that's probably been a good thing. But it'd be interesting. I'm not sure whether they would jump straight in, say with an AC Milan, if that was a PIF investment, or even I've seen some people online saying, "Oh, they'll go and buy Man United." Well, no, I genuinely don't believe that'll be the case. PIF are looking for. They mentioned it in their statement. Hasn't turned out to be the exact justification for their pullout, but they want investments. Man United isn't much of an investment when it costs you 3 to 5 billion to. And then obviously you've got to grow it on top of that. And Newcastle United 300 million could grow to £1 billion business within 3 or 4 years. And I think that was the real appeal of Newcastle United.
Yeah. Last 15 minutes, guys. If you're watching as well, please just hit the thumbs up, give it a like, please give it a share. And if you're a new visitor to the channel, please subscribe. We'll do a show each night at the moment with different guests each night. And tonight, obviously, you've got Liam on from the Shields Gazette and Al Waleed live from Saudi Arabia. Wilfred asks you a question, Liam. Do you think Mike Ashley's happy just to take the 17 million deposit and forget about the takeover now?
Again, that's like that would have fit with a narrative that we felt about him before this process, but that isn't the case. He genuinely wanted this club gone. He didn't want to be sitting here in August still owning Newcastle United. He didn't want to be sitting there in June. He didn't want to be sitting there in May owning the football club. He thought it would be done by April the 30th, as did many other people. It wasn't, of course, and he just has to get on with it. But he doesn't want to own Newcastle United any more now than we want him to own it. He wants gone as we want him gone.
Jason Carter asks a question. I've seen this bandied around a few places. The FA are the governing body of football nationally. Could they get involved or at least push the Premier League into a response or explanation into the delay?
Well, they are totally independent bodies, so I'm not sure on the exact lines of legality there. But I mean, if people want to pressure down that avenue, I don't see how that can do any kind of damage to this bid. I think any action is good action at this stage, because we've got to take control. We've been forgotten. We've been left cast aside. Nobody's been given any information. There's been no clarity. And I think if we can all do our own little bit, then it really can make a difference. I genuinely do. It might be the smallest percentage, but in these deals, the smallest percentages can be the biggest. So let's just do our best and try and get this over the line. Yes, you can't force the Premier League, but we can make it a little bit uncomfortable for them.
Raymond's asking if the Premier League has to give an outcome. The ombudsman, the financial ombudsman, I know has been contacted by the NUFC, so I think we will get something from them, but I don't expect it to be much. We asked if we would forgive Mike Ashley if he tried hard to sell to them. Look, a bit difficult to forgive Mike Ashley for everything he's done, but I think we'd be delighted if he did get involved. We've covered Pat Ritchie's letter at the start of the show. That's obviously the running total. People keep sending us the running total of the petition, nearly up to 75,000, which is fantastic. Fungo Freddy, do you think PIF will have players on standby to come in and sign straight away? Or do you think they'll start talking players once they get control of Newcastle? There was some players mentioned in some of the press reports, wasn't there, Liam?
Yeah, there was. I'm wondering, I've written a story for the morning. I'm going to spoil it. I don't care. Let's have an exclusive on here. Yes, there was. Yes, there was a list. There was the scouting teams at Newcastle United were given a specific list. And this is something they've been working on, and they were working on up until only a couple of days before the actual pullout of the deal. It came as a surprise to them as much as it did anyone else. I'm not sure what from where the list came from, whether it was given to them by owners in waiting. I'm not so sure. I don't think that would be the case. I suspect it was more the scouting team working on the idea that we need to cover all bases because this decision is coming and it's coming fast. When they came off furlough, they thought that would be the case very, very quickly. As we all know, it hasn't turned out to be the case, but there was 2 or 3 very, very distinct lists working in totally different levels. And unfortunately for us, we're kind of working on the bottom two lists, not the top one.
Yeah, well, fair enough. John Waters is asking if the consortium could take this to CAS in the same way as Man City did regarding the Champions League ban. I'm not sure that's something they can do. I'm not quite clued up on that kind of stuff, I've got to be honest. Jason says, I wouldn't be surprised if Ashley's lost more than 17 million from his retail empire during the COVID outbreak. I think he needs to lose the club to keep his empire afloat. Yeah, I mentioned this just in a conversation with Liam a couple of days ago, brinkmanship. And I'm sure Mike Ashley's been doing a little bit of that with his retail business. I think you're probably right. Andy Mona Prime says, Albany, do you think the Geordies will like Capsa?
Of course, yeah. I think she tried, of course.
What's
do you know
Capsa?
What Capsa it is? Do you know what it is? What is it? No.
No. What is Capsa?
It's a tradition food. Come from rice. Special way of cooking rice and chicken, or rice with beef. It's very delicious.
Well, if it's got rice and chicken, as long as I can put some chilies in it, and that's not offensive to the Saudi Arabians.
No, a lot of. I'm not a chef, but they put a lot of spices, of course. Yeah, they have a special way to cook it. Yeah.
Okay, and would I be permitted in Saudi Arabia to have a glass of wine with that? Because sometimes I like a glass of wine with that kind of meal. Is that okay?
Here.
Yeah. Would I be allowed to?
Actually, we have alcoholic beer.
Well, that's okay then. As long as we can have something like that. As long as I'll have something like. Andy says, "Great Joe, keep up the fight." Chicken Oriental, he loves his hashtags. Premier League's corrupt, he says. That wasn't me who said that. Frankie says, pied my question. Cheers. No, we didn't, mate. We covered it earlier. Pat Ritchie, we'll cover it again. Pat Ritchie, the councillor, put a letter in, Liam. It's good to see support from local councillors, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I'd heard some conflicting things over the course of this process. Very early on, I was told that it really would be a game changer for the city in terms of the investment that came in from the Rubens. And from PPP and the whole group as a whole. I'd since heard that there wasn't an amazing amount of excitement from within the council, that it was going to be the game changer. I heard that maybe a couple of weeks back. But given the fact that it was going to be any money, the council in these circumstances, everybody's cash strapped, whether it be local government, central government, or just us with our cash in our pockets, they would have taken that money. And I think that they've got a reason to feel quite peed off, really, that there's not going to be anything of that nature coming. Even though I don't think it was going to be Man City transformative, but I do believe it was going to be considerable, the investment, and they've outlined the kind of figures that they were going to spend. Man City's been 10 years. They've spent probably about $1 billion to $1.5 billion Abu Dhabi in that city, and it wasn't going to be anywhere near that. Not initially in the first short to medium term, but no, I think it's really positive. Every angle that we can attack this from, whether it be, as you say, Newcastle Council, whether it be journalists, whether it be fans, whether it be people like yourself, Steve, we can all fight the good fight. Let's get some change, and let's try and push together and get something worthwhile out of this, because you've got to think, we've all given a lot of this. We haven't given any money like the three buyers have, or Mike Ashley even with his legal fees. We haven't given money over, but I've invested a lot of my hopes. I've invested a lot of my dreams, my efforts, sleepless nights over this kind of thing, working in this industry.
I had long hair.
Yeah, I'm not sure you did, but I'm losing. I'm brushing over a little penalty spot here, so it's only getting worse.
For me, I cover it with the Shamar.
Yeah, exactly. Graham Dougal says, would you take relegation and the PIF-led buyout in the EFL? Promoted clubs don't have to pass the Premier League tests, and the EFL tests seem to be very easy to pass. He's obviously going on about the Wigan scenario. Crazy, wasn't it, Liam?
Yeah, it's a really difficult one. I've had a number of people come with this scenario to me, and it's just an impossible decision. I probably would go through the pain of a relegation to have a change of ownership, but I really feel that it's a big roll of the dice, because to me, even though Newcastle United have bounced back up twice under Mike Ashley very quickly, it can become the wilderness. This football club's experienced that before, where once you spend 1-2 years out of there, it can quickly turn into 3 or 4. And a lot of clubs have. Middlesbrough, close to us, Sunderland are experiencing that now. And there is a massive risk with dropping out of a division, even if you've got a rich owner coming in, because you see clubs in the Championship, the money that they spend now is incredible. You see a club like Derby, the debts they've ran up in recent years just trying to get in. They can't even get in the playoffs year on year. So to me, it's a really tough call. But yeah, I probably would. To be honest, I probably would drop out of the division if it meant that we're going to have a new brew.
Yeah. Yes, Al Walid is on Twitter. It's LW_Newcastle. So if you want to follow him on there. Al Walid, go for it.
Yeah, please, I don't believe PIF will invest in another country in UK except Newcastle.
Okay. That's good to
Newcastle, hear. If Newcastle being the deal takeover will not happen, they will go for another league.
Okay, that's fair enough. Good answer. Simple.
I have a message in Arabic for a petition, if you allow me later.
Please do. Yes, please do. Go for it, Al Walid.
Yeah, it's in Arabic. It's just to explain how important the petition is.
Okay. Go.
Okay. أتمنى من الجمهور الرياضي في السعودية الداعم لنادي نيوكاسل يونايتد التوقيع في العريضة. لماذا؟ إذا وصل عدد الموقعين إلى 100,000 يساعد ذلك النادي على الحصول على تحقيق مستقل من الحكومة والبرلمان البريطاني بعيدا عن البريمير ليج وتحيزه، ويضمن حق المشترين بما فيهم صندوق الاستثمار السعودي. يتبقى حاليا 25,000 توقيع للوصول إلى العدد المطلوب. التوقيع لا يأخذ أكثر من 30 ثانية. تجدون طريقة التوقيع في التغريدة المثبتة في حسابي في تويتر.
Good stuff. Thank you, mate. Excellent. And hopefully that will get a few more thousand signatures from Saudi Arabia and those other people who want to support us out there. Bishop, sorry we didn't get your question earlier. He says, have they officially pulled out of the deal? We don't really know, Liam, do it? It's a question I think we've been asked and nobody really knows whether they have or not.
No, they hadn't as of Thursday and Friday, but whether that's the case now is another thing altogether. If they haven't, it really makes it intriguing, because then everything is still in play. There's no need for renewed tests. There's no need for renewed deposits. There's no need for any kind of delay. The Premier League would still be in a case where everything is still on their table and they would have to make a decision. So fingers crossed they haven't, because the statement, to me, there's been some conjecture online. Yes, of course, the statement was a pullout, but it wasn't official. It's a bit like me saying to all my mates, I'm not going to buy that house anymore. Doesn't mean I've actually pulled out of the deal. So I think you've got to tell the official bodies. And if there hasn't been an official word to the Premier League, then I do think everything's still in play.
Yeah, Brandon, I don't really know is the answer to your question. Hopefully it will, but nobody can give you an answer that I don't think. Damien, there's a lot of pie on here tonight. People think we're pieing questions, but the questions come thick and fast, and we've got to be selective. Damien, did you pie my question? Popped out to grab something from the car. Is the AGM on Thursday significant? It's another Premier League meeting, Damien. Is it significant? I'm not sure. I've got to be perfectly honest. It'll be interesting to see how things pan out with it. Whether it's significant or not, only time will tell. Nicholas, thanks very much. He's bought every boy's dream. Liam was one of the first. There we go. I'm back again. Stephen Grossman said, I agree with what you said earlier, and I quoted it exactly the same. I do believe Mike Ashley could ironically be the key to this deal going through. He always gets his own way after all. Lots of support coming in for you guys as well. Lots of people saying that they've enjoyed the show. Al Walid, last comment from you to Newcastle fans for this week.
For Newcastle fan?
Yeah.
I hope to we are happy to be united together. Let's try to let's try to make a difference.
Good stuff. Thank you, Liam. Great to have you on again, mate. And we'll just have to keep watching, won't we? Lots of people asking, is it going to go through? Have the pull out? We don't want to give people false hope. We're in a different situation. We're in a different ballpark, aren't we? To last week, we were still hopeful it was going to go through. We were thinking we're going to get an answer quite quickly. But unfortunately, we're still waiting. But I suppose at least there's not a ticking clock now.
Yeah, it was a weird kind of thing because it didn't hit me emotionally initially on Thursday. It took a little time for that to happen, but I've got to be honest, the first emotion that I felt, and this might sound totally strange, was a little bit of certainty, a little bit of relief in some ways, because that clock wasn't ticking anymore. Obviously, then the emotion of it really is that this could have been transformative, is the last chance for many people of a different generation. They feel to have a transformative owner at the football club. And that emotion did hit me through the weekend. I had a few days off, had time to digest the whole thing. And it was a tough thing to take, but we've got to just stick together. We've got to just fight for everything. There's not many things that can go wrong now because we know that they've pulled out. So any positive from now, any sort of little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, we've just got to jump on and we've just got to hope. Don't build your hopes up too much. People pin their mental health a lot on football. I get that. I really get it. But we've just all got to try and stay calm, level-headed. Take a step back if it's getting too much for you. And just, it'll happen if it's going to happen. We all hope it'll happen, as you guys do out there. But we can't make it happen. We can only do a little bit. So fingers crossed it does. But at least, like you said, Steve, that we're not all sitting here waiting for that moment when it just clicks on the Sky ticker tape, which it did last Thursday. At least we're not waiting for that moment anymore. And any step in the right direction can be positive. If it's a no, it's a no. At least we know it's probably going to be one because they pulled out. So I think there's a certainty there that's allowed me to move on mentally. And hopefully it's had that effect on a lot of people out there as well.
Just give a plug to your other podcasts, Liam. Obviously, you work at the Shields Gazette, but you do other stuff. Where can people catch you? And just give it a quick plug before we finish.
So we're going to do a podcast tomorrow. It'll probably be along these sort of lines. It's at Mouth of the Time Pod on Twitter. You can catch that across all the usual channels, Acast, Spotify, all these places. But also, I'd like to say, if you like what I say here, you like the kind of thing that I do, it's really important that journalism doesn't come for free. I know it has for a long time. I'll be honest, over the years, I haven't paid for a lot of it. But really, for me to continue doing the things that I do, and everybody in the Shields Gazette, the Sunday Echo, Hartlepool Mail, you've got to pay for it, unfortunately. And you can get 2 months for £1 a month. But subscribe. You'll see it on my Twitter feed. I'm going to put it at the top of there tonight. Just help out, because you don't get journalism for free. Any kind of comment, story, investigation, all that has to be paid for, and someone's got to pay me wages. So you can at least help us out a bit.
Yeah, good stuff, mate. Great stuff. Thanks for coming on again, guys. Al-Walid, hopefully we'll be able to get you on next week, and good luck with your show. And as I say, people can follow you at LW_Newcastle. But thanks for coming on, guys. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Cheers, lads.
I'm going to go now and get some Casper.